Okay, what we're going to talk about is a poem from Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so I sent the poem to you guys, so that you can read about it a little bit, and then we can analyze bit by bit. It has got so much in it, we can discuss about this for several hours, So, but we'll confine ourselves to 20, 30 minutes, okay? So what does the poem say? The poem says, you have allowed your lower self to dominate your higher self, then the real universal self will not help you. On the other hand, if you let the higher self subdue your self, then the universal self will be a friend of yours. Okay, what does it mean? There are three selves he's talking about here. See, the way I found, maybe people are doing it already, but I will state that anyway. The way I found these profound truths, if I approach them in a certain way, it has meaning and it has also invigoration of that kind of resilience or power within you. So what I would recommend is, don't look at this as an information, or don't look at this as entertainment. If at all, it cannot be entertainment. It's very intense, So people really like to listen to light-hearted stuff, and they don't want to go deeper into this kind of universal truths and absolute truths and all that. But the way to look at it is, here and now, make sure you're really listening to the truth, and then you are really understanding the truth, and also you are making it real in your life here and now, not at a later date. Okay, you got to do it now. Go within yourself and find out, not analysis. Just look at the fact. For example, I tell you something about anger, and then what they said about anger will come out in the discussion, and you look at your own anger. Is it there or not? If it is there, does it fit this paradigm of why these things are springing up? Once you examine it like that, it will be a profound change right here and now, not at a later date. Okay, that is the way I find most of these spiritual discussions, that either it is Ramana or Jai Krishnamurti or Sadhguru or Brahma Kumaris or Gandhi or any Sarvpriyananda or Prajaravka. So many people that I really listen to. Now lately I'm listening to her called Uma Devi. She is discussing quite a bit at depth. When I listen to these people, I don't go there for them to give me information. I go there to participate in the exploration of truth, which they are doing, and what their journey was, how their approach was, so that when I participate, I'm also there. So it's like a journey you have to do, carrying the equal load. It's not for them to carry the load and for me to really listen and go, or for me to enjoy, or for me to build my ego, thinking that, oh, how much I know. Okay, so why we should approach that is, all these are said to be coming from the universal force that created this, and that is telling us, hey, this is the way, this is the truth. Listen to this, follow this. Okay, so it's not like a personal God that we created ourselves, but it is the force that was there that created everything. It's like a creator is really telling you in your ears. That's why they call them Shrutis. So Vedas were not written. Vedas were said to be Shrutis, to the rishis who are in deep meditative state. What is the deep meditative state? They were completely open to the Shruti that is being conveyed to you, and they listen. That's why they call Shrutis. So from the listening, from really understanding, this happened to Ramanujan, the great physicist. He was sleeping and he had some Devi appeared in his dream and wrote complicated mathematical formulas on his tongue, which he woke up and wrote down. So when the leading physicist questioned him, how did you get them? This is what he told, So what does it mean? The universal force will come and reveal truth to you, provided you are open to it. So why are not open to it? Because we have our own charter of our own simple learnings that we did with our education, with our parents, with our culture, interfere with that listening. So that's the fundamental. So whenever you listen to these talks, here and now, is the truth? Do I understand it first? If I understood it, do I really get it? And then if I get it, so always put that, did I hear it correctly? Did I understand it correctly? Is that real in my life? Okay. And then you have to do it now. Okay. So let us take this poem. It is describing three different selves. Number one self is the small self. Okay. That is more like the animalistic nature of us. Okay. I'm putting very simply just for us to understand. Okay. The higher self is the divine nature of us. Okay. And then the universal self, which is the creator, which is the God, which is the force, which is governing the nature, which is manifesting in everything and all that. That's called, in Sanskrit term, that's called Brahman. So the small self is called Jiva. Okay. The higher self is called the soul, Atma, and then universal self is the Brahman. Okay. Eventually, the Brahman and the Atma are the same because Brahman is reflected as Atma in you. You don't have an individual Atma, but that nature is there. It's like a sun is kept in front of 1,000 glasses that has water in it. The sun will reflect all the 1,000 glasses. The sun is there in each glass, but the sun is outside there, but is reflected in there. The Atma is like that, reflected consciousness, which is creating everything. Everything comes out of the consciousness. That is their understanding. So now let us take what is the animalistic nature, the lower self. If it, suppose somebody is very angry or violent and he is in the lower self and he pursued that anger, irrespective of whatever is happening outside, he can be very destructive, right? At that time, what happened? All his nobler instincts, all his maturity, all his civility, all his sophistication or nagarikata, all those things were suppressed, and this man expresses that anger no matter what, right? So he has the remnants of it, he has the fruits of that action, and that action is not condoned by the universal self. So if you are in basic nature and you are dominating your higher nature, then the force, the Brahman, will not be a friend to you. So the universal energies are not going to be with you. You are hurting a plant, you are hurting an animal, you are doing all of that. Don't expect the universal forces to be helpful to you. Look at what we are doing to the plant when we are killing so many animals and then grazing for the grazing, we are cutting down so many trees. It has resulted in the powers of cyclone, floods, and all those things have happened, and they are happening because we have been violating those universal laws. So how is this going to be with our lives right now. Okay, take for example, what are the prevalent energies in the human endeavor on the planet? Okay, violence, untruths, corruption, and they are always not satisfactory, right? They are always pursuing for something. There are so much ashanti or lack of peace, so much lack of love. So many fights within the family, within the countries, within the countries and among the countries. So all these are reflecting of our lower nature, which we are following all the time. Okay, so if you take something like a family feud, for example, okay, it happens in all the families as though it is normal, as though it can happen, it's okay. But if you really take a look at it, and then you take that, for example, every family has this, right? You take that example, and basically what is that? People are quarreling for what? They're quarreling for things, or they're quarreling for some misunderstandings, or they're quarreling for things that are really, really temporary and they're not going to last. Okay, but they are doing that anyway because they are always mired in the small self. Suppose their higher self is really dominant, then what it does is, hey, these are not important. What is important is that we live in peace and love among ourselves during our lifetime. And then the universal self also looks at it with approval, and you have more sukh, santosh, that means pleasure and love and happiness flow into that family. But lots of times we allow our lower nature to go. So children don't listen to the parents anymore, and among the couples also, they don't have any compatibility. Okay, I think something, my wife thinks something, and then we never try to see what is really universal, what is really higher in us. So if you take simple thing like family feud, this applies very much. Now, you can explain with this principle so many things of yoga systems, the chakra systems, purushartha, and the whole thing about liberation. All these three things will take one at a time. First of all, are you guys all clear about what is the lower self, what is the higher self, and what is the universal self? Okay. Once you understand those three, just look at it. What are my major tendencies? Are they towards, or am I allowing, or I'm being controlled by my lower self, or am I having this higher self compete or go through my entire 24 hours? Once you understand that, you're already somewhat liberated from the lower self. Then you really understand what is Brahman, how the Brahman is reflected. Then it will come through your regular life. Okay, how does it do it? For example, you want to spiritualize your daily life. That is your goal. That is why we want to have the spirituality within our life, because that is kind of uh, uh, that's kind of goes into your life. Okay, so Vivekananda said this: why do you have to read these things? Why do you have to pay attention to these shastras, they call it? Why do you have to pay attention to Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, everybody? Because he said you have to spiritualize your life. What does it mean? It means you have to bring the divinity within you, and you have to see the divinity in everything. with everybody. So I posed a question the other day. Can you guys look at each other and say, I'm going to relate to the soul, not just to the body and mind? You know, that is what I'm talking about. Once you listen to that, understood that, see that whether you're making it real within you or not. So this has to be done deliberately in the beginning, because our body and minds, they go for the conditioning, for the training that we gave thus far in our life. So without you knowing also, it will go. But you mostly think I'm this body, I'm this mind, then you're going to act through them. But the moment you try to say, hey, this is body is like a stoola, I'm not that. And then mind is something like a bunch of ideas, I'm not that. But I feel my ideas, I feel my feelings, I feel my body. So I must be the different one. And then if you just think about that, then what happens? You begin to look at that like, so that there won't be domination of the body, domination of the mind on you. You remember the mantra I told you about that? Okay, the mantra I told you about, just recollecting, Deham Naham, Koham Soham. The thing is, it's not just remembering the mantra, but are you with the spirit of that mantra in your daily life? Even if you do in the morning and in the evening, you come back to it all the time. Suppose you have a violent reaction to a relationship of yours because you have difference of opinion or you don't get along, then the moment you are doing the reaction, identify that reaction is from the mind, and that is happening to you, not just to the mind. And that reaction is not you, the reaction is happening within you. So once you understand that, then you will slowly go into the soham. Deham means body mind complex. Naham means I'm not that. Koham, then who am I? I am this. Soham, aham, soham. That means absolute consciousness. Atma, Paramatma has joined together there. So anyway, what we are talking about here is how do we incorporate this into the Purushartha. That's what they said in yogic culture or Vedantic culture. What they said was, there are some aims, there are some ways that human beings follow. They gave 4 ways for our understanding. Okay, so dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These 4, right? So the first one is artha. That is, you have to have the basic securities, basic things, and then it goes all the way to the wealth in money, knowledge, or any other aspect of it. Okay, so people go for the securities first, but the human nature is such that you won't be satisfied with the basic securities. The moment you have the basic securities, you leave them and you go into the something else. You have an apartment, that's not enough. You want a bigger house. You have a bigger house, that's not enough. You want a villa. You have a villa, that's not enough. You have to have a bigger palace or something, So, I mean, that is the way the human self-awareness takes form. An animal will be satisfied eating and then lying down, and that will be okay. But after we eat, we don't want to stop there. We want to go somewhere. So the trick is to understand this and come back to what is the basic need, and beyond that, why am I going for more? Once you have that, the security that you are looking for other things is not there. Once you understand that, you will be secure within yourself. So you won't be pursuing all these pursuits that we think will give us security. Because basically what happens is, whatever you go for, once you acquire that, that is gone. And then you go for something else. So it's always outwardly, it's always going for security in the things that are basically insecure themselves. Okay, so once you understand this artha, then you also want to understand what is kama, what is pleasure. Anything, small thing or bigger thing, the pleasure is always outside within. But then once you see 10 movies, that movie going is gone. Once you eat so much food, that is also gone. So all the path that we choose for pleasure will only give temporary and small pleasures. Once you understand this, then you can eat, but you can eat to the limit that you want, and then you will go over that also. Then you will be happy within yourself with the things that you are presented to you. Okay, you can live a good life, but not at the extent of going after these drugs and all the other things people do, adventures and everything. They're all unnecessary once you are secure with the pleasure that you have within yourself. That is the ananda. Okay, so what they found was people normally they go with the basic nature where they go after security and they make the security everything. Like most of the people, earning a livelihood is everything. Beyond that, they don't think at all. Their whole life may go like that. Okay, but the human life and having understood these things makes you realize there's so much more to human life than just making a living. It could be a small living or a big living. It could be a small salary-based person or making millions in business. But the whole thing is the making living. Once you make that, then you are still in the basic self. Okay. Now, I want to be meaningful. I want to really realize something in my work. Those people, they do work for work's sake or work for the country's sake, work for the society. They have meaning. A teacher may feel, I want to help my students to understand the truths of life. Then that's her goal. And then she will go after that. And then she will try to convey that to the students. And she feels fulfilled that way. But that's also limited even to the biggest, nobler causes. Then you have to do all these things in a dharmic way. Dharmic means moral. Dharmic means just, correct, right way. Okay. So why do you have to do that? Because we all know what is truth about lying, but we lie because we don't pay attention to this, what is right, what is not. Even though it is telling you, we do that anyway, because that is the human nature also again. So you have to go over that and be truthful all the time means that is being spiritual. That means you are being in the divine self. Okay, these universities are part and package of human being all the time. They are conveniently set aside, or you let the lower self dominate you so that the higher values will not come out. We all know fighting with the, our relatives is bad, but this continues, either you want it or they want it. Even if you want to be friendly, they may not want to be friendly. Then what happens? The relationship is never built up because we are craving for small things. We are not craving for the love and affection that can be happen between the human beings, because everybody wants to take advantage of everybody else. That's all the lower self. So you get the drift now. What is the lower self? What is the higher self? And what is the universal? Among the Purusharthas, we did dharma, artha, kama. The last one is the moksha. Moksha is not out there in the heavens. Moksha is liberation from this lower self and also to some higher self. The whole mind and liberation from it is moksha. So that is the highest way they said, and there was a path for that. That is viveka. You have to have qualifications for the spiritual life. First is viveka, second is vairagya, third is shargamamal, and then fourth is mumuksha. Viveka is realizing what is real, what is not real. Vairagya is developing a dispassion to the temporary things and also not being attached to a particular food, for example, and then just enjoying it a little bit and then keeping like the not going all the way towards and developing obesity and developing health problems and all that. Okay, so that is the importance of Vairagya. You have to, all the pleasurable things, all the money oriented things, everything is temporary. Once you realize that, you won't waste your time with all those things that much. You will earn what is needed, but you won't go beyond that. You will eat what is needed, you won't go beyond that. Like that. All the lifestyles are under control. For what? So that you can realize that your mind is controlling you, and there is a way to release the mind and then attain the already present happiness within you. That they call Satchidananda. The consciousness is the same thing as existence, is same thing as the Ananda, happiness. So once you understand these Purusharthas in this respect, then you will see which path I am. Am I just living like an animal? Or do I have some nobler instincts that I'm following? Or do I have some divine qualities that are already in me and I am in touch with that? Not a egoic self, that's basic self. But once you get rid of that egoic self, then you will be in touch with the divine self. Right? Now, let's come to the chakra system. The chakra system is from the base, the Muladhara, all the way to the Sahasrara. So the first three are confined to just basic living, basic food and shelter, basic reproduction, basic pursuing career, ambitions, or anything that you want to realize on the earth. Okay, then you graduate after that into the heart chakra, where you expand your heart irrespective of all these basic needs or not. That's why the yogis sarvasanga parityaga. They leave all this, whatever food they receive, they will eat. Whatever, they won't go beyond that. Okay, and then they won't go and make so much living. They just have the living of teaching people wisdom and getting money for it or not money for it or something basic. Somebody will give them shelter, food, so that they can survive and spread the truth, right? Then you develop this throat chakra, where you are speaking from wisdom, not from your compulsive thinking. Okay, and then you open up your mind, your higher chakras. Okay, they are all very, very much oriented to the higher self, or eventually the higher self opens to the universal self. So if you take this poem and analyze in that respect, the first three basic chakras are the basic self. If you dominate them, they will dominate you. A person who is going around cheating on his wife with all the other women, he is basically dominated by his Muladhara. Somebody who has tremendous ambition like Trump, and he goes and he only goes for the personal power, he is in Swadhisthana. Like that, you can analyze all those three chakras. Okay, if you are basically animalistic and also pursuing just for your upliftment and ego development, most of the people are on these three chakras. That is the basic. They only are not allowed to dominate by the societal construct or by the punishment, and then they may behave. But basically, each person can evaluate, what are my basic tendencies? Am I a violent person? Am I an angry person? Am I somebody who is craving for things that I can eat and become obese because I don't have any control of that chakra? Okay. Once those chakras understood, then you go and open up your higher chakras, where the higher self resides, and all the higher things, the morality, the nobler instincts, the societal standards, all those things are there. then you follow them, then you are in a higher self. And eventually, when the higher self opens up and it's operating in your life all the time, then you'll be able to explore these spiritual truths and go and really identify the divinity within you, which is the reflection of what we said, universal self. Okay, that is how we interpret chakra system with this. Okay, now if you look at your life, first understand what are the qualities of basic self. Don't let that dominate your higher self. That's what they said. If your basic self is subdued by the higher self, then the universal self will be a friend of you. On the other hand, if you let your higher self be dominated by the lower self, then the universal self will not be a friend to you. Taking this into consideration, you can see your tendencies, you can see your behaviors, you can see your pursuits, you can see your energies, where they are. Are they in my basic self? That means I'm fearful about my security. I am going after what I want. I'm very egotistical and selfish. And I think whatever I'm doing is the everything and will dominate everybody. I will inflict violence on everybody, even if it is our own parents, our own brothers, our own sisters. We will inflict a lot of violence on that. Once you see those tendencies, then say, we don't have to be like this. I'm being like this because of my lack of understanding of life as described in those shastras. Okay, then you say, okay, there is a other possibility for a human life. Let me see. Let me do things for others. Let me do things for the planet. Let me do things for the country. Let me do things for the other people. Then what happens is your higher instincts of compassion, consideration, kindness, and you are secure within yourself because you are not pursuing for something outside. This is the meaning of the Purnamidam. Once you understand that, even the Purnamidam has a much higher feeling where the higher self is you. Once you understand a higher self, the higher self is the universal self. That is you. Part of is there. You remember what is the most important poem in Bhagavad Gita? I said, chapter 10, verse 20. What did he say? I am the God. I am there within all human beings. I am the beginning, middle, and end. Now, are you in touch with that? That is the spiritualization of daily life. That means, are you in touch with the divinity? Are you seeing the divinity in other person? Start doing that with your near and dear ones. Then your conclusions about them or your so-called understanding of them will submit, because you are not looking at their body. You don't blame them because they are colored. You don't blame them because they are ugly, or you just don't notice that. You go beyond that. Then you say, they are not their personality, they are not their ideas, they are not their emotions. You go beyond that. Then you see the divinity within them. That is the meaning of the Namaste. You have to identify the divinity within you, and that divinity also identifies the divinity in the other person. Okay, so this is how you interpret this poem. I can go and take each one. If, for example, if I say Purusharthas, I can take each one, I could talk about 3-4 hours. Okay, so they had so much wisdom came from the universal self to the rishis who are in meditative state. In the meditative state, this chattering mind was not there. Our problem is we have the chattering mind dominate us so that we cannot listen to these truths. Okay, they listened and then they propagated verbally and in their life, and they showed how they can be in Satchidananda. That means within their own self happiness. They don't have to go for anything outside. So what it is this is what happened to me. I realized that fulfillment of me is within there. So I don't have to go for anything else. Already fulfilled. Then whatever I pursue, I'll pursue, but not for the sake of fulfillment through them. This is the meaning of the Purnamidam poem. Once you repeat that, you repeat it with identifying of the fulfillment within you. Once you are fulfilled, then you don't have nothing else to go after. Whatever you go after because you want to do it for the others or for the sake of doing it, so to help the planet, your family, and everybody else. But you won't do it because I want to get fulfilled or my ego wants to get fulfilled by doing that. Because there is no ego there. Without the ego, you already found out your fulfilled self. Once you identify with that, then you don't have to advertise to anybody, you just know. You don't have any insecurity, you don't have any needs, you don't have any cravings, you don't have any compulsions. You are already rich. Then you pursue life like that. So understanding this life is very important in modern life, because what has happened to modern life? Going outward, all the time pursuing things that are not permanent, right? And then ego development, and then profits. For anything, whatever I do, I want to have a profit. So what is neglected? The interior. What is neglected? Your being. What is neglected? The happiness that's already there. So we are putting ourselves in tremendous insecurity, tremendous pursuits of non-significance, and then all our energy is gone there. Then we say, I'm unhappy, I'm not peaceful, I'm always running after something. No rest, no peace, no happiness. So understand what is the lower self, understand what is the higher self, understand what is the universal self. Actually, what happens is the universal self is all the time you. You are that self. And how it is? Take Om. In the Om, what they have? Wakefulness is one stroke. Dream is other stroke. And then other stroke is deep sleep. That is the Om, right? And then separating that, all those from your universal, which is the dot on the top, there is a arrow underneath there. That is the Maya. That means all this temporary world is the Maya. What is appearing to you as the real is really not real. That is Maya. So you are in that Maya. But when you awake, when you sleep with the dreams or without dreams, the consciousness is always there. Because in the waking stage, body is active, mind is active. In dream state, only the mind is active, body is inactive. And in the deep sleep, both body and mind are not active, but the consciousness is there, lurking. Consciousness is there during dreams. Consciousness is there during waking. So that is separated. You don't have the identification because you are in Maya. You are in unreality. And once you realize that, then you are on the top of the Om, which is the dot. That is always there. That is manifesting through all these things. So it's not a separate fourth state. It is the state that is pervading all our life stages. Once you understand that, then you say, okay, this is what I really am. Then your body, mind things will not bother you. But you have to come to that after a lot of unlearning whatever you have learned about yourself. Anyway, let's come back to the poem. What does it say? The lower self, when it dominates the higher self, the universal self will not be your friend. But the lower self is subdued by the higher self, then the universal self will be with you. So all you have to do is examine it. Are you in basic animalistic self, or you have some divine qualities that are in there that are coming out, and then eventually strive for realizing the divinity within you and everybody else. That is the purpose of human life. You remember that song I always told you? I repeat that every day I'm showering. Yakkadi manava janmam vettina phalamema. That means, what is the benefit of taking a human life if you don't realize this? That self-awareness, that self-consciousness that was given to us is for this purpose. Once you examine that song, he will tell you all the wrong things that we are doing, that is being in the lower self. Then he says, I should have been doing this. That is the higher self, things that he talks about. And eventually what he says is, even if I look at you one time, you as God appeared to me, I still am going back into my routines. So that's why he questions that. What is this? Okay, other people are doing this and they're not able to realize that. But even if I realize you, I'm not being in there because I have to be at it constantly. That also they talked about. You first realize yourself, and then you think you are enlightened, realize that's not it. You have to go through this every day because all the samskaras, all the ingrained thoughts will come up every day in the morning. That's why you have to do all that. When all that stops, then you are Jivan Mukti. That means you have liberated yourself from all the suffering. That is the purpose of all this spirituality, to understand what is suffering and go beyond it. So I covered a lot of material in this. Each one, if you take it, is a deep discussion. So lots of times I'm not getting many audience because I understood what Umadev was talking about. Suppose somebody wants to do advanced physics. If he goes and sits in the class, he can't understand a thing. Then he gets bored within a few minutes and he cannot take the punishment, he will go. Spirituality is like that too. The deeper you go, the deeper you can understand. And the deeper you will be liberated from the suffering. But like now, people are suffering even for the small things. They are insecure about their life. They are insecure about their livelihood. They don't lose their job, immediately they go into insecurity. But the way to man to come out of that insecurity is understand all these things are temporary. Even if you get the better job, that company may go down in a month or 1 year or 10 years. So that is the temporary nature you have to realize. And then you go back to your original self, which is the most secure. Then you can use the same mind and create a livelihood for yourself. Chanakya is a big example. He was insulted and thrown out of the kingdom. Then he did not sit down and self-pity and all the nitty causes. He is already a self-realized person. So he is secure within himself. But he wanted to establish the dharma, the rightful path, which is to take away these cruel kings and then build up somebody who doesn't even know anything and groom him to an emperor and takes over the kingdom through him. But he himself did not want the kingdom. He wanted the kingdom in a right, justful way for the people. So he used his mind extraordinary way. And then when they exiled him, he went into the forest and trained this guy and also got the emperor. But at the same time, he wrote Ardha Shastra, which is the economic Bible, even the corporations are using. So we have to use our mind like that, not saying my mind is bad, put it away. No, how I am using it, mind is the bad thing. So learn how to use the mind. That is to understand the tendencies, understand the selves, and then bring that into your life. Okay? Then I will stop here. Okay?